And remember, you're watching Standing on Guard, where we try and keep an eye on the enemy. And of course, we want to look at what is happening in Narok right now as far as those skirmishes are concerned, because we have our security panelists with us this morning. Earlier on, we introduced to you Erastus Mwencha, who is a former deputy chair of the African Union. Also, we have with us in studio Professor Noah Midamba, who is a vice chancellor of KCA University, and also he is an expert on defense and foreign policy. We do have with us Dr. Mumunzao, governance and security strategist. Also, we do have with us as well Dr. Mustafa Yusuf Ali, who is a conflict resolution expert and national security analyst as well. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, let's just begin with you, Dr. Mustafa. What is happening in Narok right now, and looking also at the editorial cartoon that we do have today in the Daily Nation, according to Munene. If we may just pick up that particular editorial cartoon. Yes, is it being stocked by politicians? And previously we've seen skirmishes also elsewhere in Laikipia being stocked by politicians, being arraigned in court, out on bail, then nothing really happens after that.
Yeah, Debarl, the Narok issues, together with Mau and many other clashes around land issues in Kenya, is something that is not new. It's been there for a very long time, and is bound to continue because it appears to me, and I'm sure my colleagues as well, that no concrete strategy has been put in place to resolve conflicts that are as a result of land. In this particular case, we recall a while back that the issue of Narok, and to some extension Mau, was politicized. And it's haunting us back today. Mm-hmm. And for that particular reason, we shouldn't really be lamenting, but we need to really look into the problems and address those particular problems. The Maasais are now suffering because they're the ones who are on the lower riparian, and the river is drying up. We don't have as much water as we used to have before because of the activities on upstream. And these are issues that are causing tremendous stress on the local communities there. And we will still continue to see this kind of clashes between the Kipsigis, the Maasais, between the various communities that live on the borderline around that region.
All right. And so a curfew, right, it won't be the prime solution, but it just may mollify and pacify the communities for a while. Then what? Professor Noah Midamba.
Debarl, I agree with most of it. We cannot continue as a country to glossy over these issues and go to sleep and wake up and say everything is going to be fine. And so morning curfew is a temporary measure for the security people to keep the warring groups in check. But fundamentally, we need to address the issue of ethnic harmony. We need to address the issue of land. We need to address issues of water resources. And we need to really ask ourselves where we're going as a Kenya, as a group. What is our future? Is any Kenya the right to live anywhere, buy land, live anywhere, and raise family? What do people want? Do we want a divided country where the Mau belong to Maasai and other places belong to other people, and we are going to continue like that? How can we develop this country together? This is a fundamental question, and the politicians who jumps in and inflame already fairly volatile situation are themselves to blame.
Right.
And therefore, this is a national issue that we need to get to the bottom and commit to solving it at the grassroots level.
Right, national issue that we need to get to the bottom of it. But just barely, I think 2 weeks ago, we had the arid and semi-arid land conference that was held in Kilifi. And this is not the first conference that we've had. So what sort of solutions do we really come up when we go for these particular conferences? Erastus Mwancha.
Debarl, just to crown on what has just been said, we are staring at a very scary situation because of climate change. We are going to see more of these clashes, particularly in what you might call pastoralist communities.
Yes.
Where land has not been demarcated, there has been communal land, and where that society will see as land having been encroached. In fact, if you look at instances of where you have intercommunity problems, it's Maasai against the Kipsigis. You have in Laikipia, there's a situation. You have in Turkana. And even if you get out of the country, Kenya, you go into Sudan, you go into Uganda, Karamachong, you go into Ethiopia, this kind of thing is repeated. And unless we address the threat, as Mustafa said, that is there, particularly on the issues of water and land, we're going to be looking at it. The question you raised is, how should we solve it? If you look at Kenya's history itself, in 2007, when we nearly tipped over, there was a report produced by others, late Annan and the others, the 4 agenda. One of them was on land and clearly articulated issues on how we should address land. Land has not been addressed. I mean, if I tell you the community where I come from, whenever I go there, you simply have to weep because you see the land is getting smaller and smaller, population is growing, productivity is decreasing, you will start to see poverty increasing, and with increased poverty, you have insecurity. So we must sit down and come up with a land solution if we are going to avert a crisis that is in the making.
A land solution.
Yes.
We thought these land solutions also will have been found in the Ndungu report as well, which is still gathering dust, right? Exactly. Okay, let's hear from Dr. Momonzao. Good morning.
Yeah,
I like the cut of your suit.
Yeah, thank you.
You look smart.
Thank you. Right. So I thought we have to be careful, people, what they listen out there, and sometimes we call things what they are not. It is true that communities sometimes get to clash about resources and so on. So we are talking about natural resource-based conflicts, but there are certain fundamental things that as a country we must agree.
Yes.
And if we don't agree on that, then we will not be doing the right thing. We must agree that we have to protect our water catchments. We have to protect our forest areas. We have to gazette them properly and find that they are not infringed. Now, where wrongs have been committed in the past, it is up to leaders, community leaders, elders, and all that to come together. And government, especially now that we have county authorities, people to sit down and say, because there are people probably who bought land from fake sellers, people who duped them into buying land that is trust land, for government land, forest land, and so on. And these are all public spaces. They should be protected. Without our water catchments, without our forests, without our, riparian, spaces, wetlands, and so on, then we are going to suffer. And that affects everyone, downstream, upstream, and all that. And therefore, there are certain fundamentals that I know sometimes politicians count people, like, how many heads do I have here so that next time there's someone to vote for me and all this. And community, sometimes people tend to vote in terms of how they speak and such things. But it is possible for our people to transcend this myopic thinking so that we can, because really, if you look down where people are talking about Kipsigis, these are people who live together. They rarely fight and so on. But then suddenly, if someone just comes and says, you know, it's those people moving you and so on. Kipsigis and Maasai did not fight here in Nairobi, and their neighbors in Kileleshwa and other places where elites live. They don't fight. It's because of just telling villagers out there, you know, just chase yourselves in the savannah and fight. Torch the houses. And it's all foolhardy. They should not do that. They know they cannot do that. And the law will prevail. These clashes will come down. But people who have sold land to ordinary people and told them lies, they will have to pay. And they will pay. Yeah. They will have to pay.
Okay. So the question is, we normally have these band-aid solutions, as we've mentioned before. And these flare-ups, maybe they'll calm down, as you say, for a while. Then next year, we're going to be having another flare-up, just within the same locality or even closer to it as well. And we have all these conferences, Dr. Mustafa, right? You are an expert on this. All these conferences that we normally have, where is the follow-up on the interventions that and the remedial measures that you come up with? So that, yes, we can see there's actually an amicable solution to all these particular land issues that we do have. Is the question really land or the resources therein? Because they're not really maybe after land. It's actually the pasture. You can see this is a nomadic community. So how do we address this solution once and for all? And I know maybe that I have not really interrogated robustly the Ndugu reports. Maybe it's captured somewhere else in the Ndugu report.
You're right, Debarl. The solutions are there. In fact, they've been debated over and over and over again. It's that will to actually implement those solutions and suggestions, very good recommendations actually, that have come up. The problem, Debarl, here has been is the politicization of each and every problem in this country. If you recall Raila Odinga, in fact, I think he might have even lost an election because he actually said that Mau must be protected at some point. And because of political expediency, there are individuals who are leaders today that actually, you know, went hammer and tongs on Raila Odinga. And we are seeing these problems coming back today. And politicians have these bad manners and habits of playing to the gallery. We see this, you know, the hyena story still stands. We see the MCAs, the way they are behaving, and not just in Nairobi here, but in many other county assemblies. And so the solutions are there. It is their implementation. As a country, we have to be brave enough to say that we have a problem here of land, and that it's not going to be a walk in the park to implement some of those recommendations. It's going to be hard, but we need to feel the pain now so that we can protect the water sources, the forests, the wetlands. I'm happy now that there are a new technocrats in government that are really working very hard to reclaim and regenerate parts of Nairobi and the country at large, and not because of some natural occurrence, but because of greed that has been there, because law was not followed. Those people that signed off riparian lands must be brought to book. And Debarl, it's not just Narok. If you look at Laikipia and the way land is distributed there, there are problems that that predates, you know, it goes all the way pre-independence.
Yes.
We will have to address those problems that we inherited from the colonialist one way or the other. We cannot wish them away. And if the current administration is doing what it's doing now to address the issues of corruption and uses the same vigor to address the land issues, I think we will move a step forward.
So a step forward. Right, and of course, if you move a step forward, will be also, as you mentioned, if we may hark back to colonial era, up to now. All that also has been captured in the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission report as well, which has not been implemented as well.
Debarl, Mao Zedong was not only a revolutionary, he was visionary.
Mao?
Mao.
Oh, yes.
I took all the economists down to Pudong, at University of Pudong, and set the stage for us for the future China. I was a visiting scholar at Pudong. I understand the history of what happened, which is currently, Mao dealt with the land issue. We cannot continue in the rate on which we are growing and cover the entire land so that there will not be any place for us to cultivate and have food. Mm-hmm. So they set up a stage for collective living, going up instead of spreading out to the land. And they stop people from spreading. Now what do they have? They have state-of-the-art cities surrounded by farms, highly productive farms, and also surrounded by factories. Now let's look at Israel. Israel has moved from drip irrigation to what is called precise farming, which is allowing each of the plants to get enough nutrients so that they can grow at the same time. Out on the desert, our people are going back and forth there. These people, reports that have been done, who is following those reports? The land next to Nairobi, Kiambu.
But who is supposed to follow this report?
Just a second. The land next to Nairobi, Kiambu is one of the most productive land in Kenya. We're spreading it out and putting tarmac on it, and we're living on it. Instead of collectively going up in Nairobi, living in high profile, and leave the rest of the land for farming, for the future of the country. Mm-hmm. Who in the world is thinking like this? Where are we going to go? Why are we going to school? Why do we have policy makers? Why can't we move these people out and find somebody who can make the right decision for the country? The pastoralist community needs solution. They need water, they need grazing land, they need modern way to raise their cattle and their family. And we will begin to have harmony.
Mm-hmm. All right, Erastus Mwencha.
You know, if you look at our Constitution, Chapter 5, it's very clear and articulates various stages and also scenarios on how to manage the land resource. And land, even if you go back to history, biblical times, and as he said, even for Kenya, we fought our independence on land. And you have seen what land has done to many countries. You've seen what has happened in Zimbabwe, what is now happening in South Africa. Land is a vital issue that must be addressed and settled. If you leave it, it will come to haunt you. And I think we are not short of solutions, as you have emphasized time and again. We have reports, we have a constitution. We even established National Land Commission. Look at how land is affecting us today. Even construction of SGR, what is driving the cost? Is land, because of compensation along the land. It's because we have not come up with land policy, and yet our population. And unless we even address the issue of how are we going to change society as it is at the moment, we are an agrarian society that lives and depends on land. If we go to manufacturing, if you go to Europe, 4% of the population feed the rest of society. In Africa, Kenya, 80% of the people produce for 20%, because even those cannot feed themselves. Let's sit down and talk about it. Otherwise, we'll be hiding our head like an ostrich, and the time is ticking. That crisis will be here tomorrow. We have solutions. It is a question of implementation and going out to do that which we know is right.
All right. All right, any of you with the final remark on that?
Yeah, Debarl, one thing, if you really want to know, in fact, there are solutions for our problems, these two young men, Haji and Kinoti, they are not using a different script or constitution. You might even wonder if what the previous office holders were doing in their place. You have two people who are working, are very precise, and we have Kenyans who can replace the jokers in all those crucial offices, whether it's in agriculture, Bureau of Standards, energy generation, who are straight, who are upright, are decent, and can transform this country. It is, the solutions are there, it's the implementation of those recommendations and suggestions.
Right, thank you.